The Taeguk spun through the battlefield like a drunk dancer at a formal ball, ungraceful, unpredictable, and somehow still standing. Around it, pieces of destroyed Chromath bioships floated in clouds of frozen organic matter, testament to Choi Mirai's theory about temperature shock. "Vent coolant now," Dr. Kang Ji-woo shouted, and the ship expelled clouds of supercooled liquid into space. The vapor flash froze everything it touched, coating nearby Chromath vessels in ice. 3 seconds later, nuclear warheads detonated, and the temperature differential tore the bioships apart from the inside. Captain Han Minho watched the destruction with grim satisfaction, but his mind was already on the bigger problem. The dimensional rift was still open, still pouring more enemies into normal space. They were killing Chromath by the hundreds, but hundreds more kept coming. "Sir, we're getting a priority transmission from the Council," Yoon Hana announced. "High Arbiter Kellon wants to speak with you directly." The gaseous being's image appeared, his colors swirling with stress. "Captain Minho, your tactics are effective, but we cannot sustain this fight indefinitely. Analysis suggests the Chromath have millions more ships waiting beyond the rift. We must collapse it." "I'm listening," Minho said, dodging another volley of bioweapons fire. "Our scientists believe a large enough energy surge at the rift's focal point could destabilize it. However, any ship that got close enough to deliver such a surge would be destroyed. The Chromath have concentrated their largest vessels around the rift specifically to prevent this." Minho looked at his tactical display. The rift was indeed surrounded by massive bio-titans, Chromath ships the size of small moons, bristling with organic weapons and what looked like armored plating grown from bone and chitin. "How large an energy surge are we talking about?" he asked. "Approximately 400 megatons delivered within a 50-meter radius of the rift's center point," Quellen replied. "Our ships lack both the firepower and the ability to get close enough. The bio-titans would destroy any vessel before it could launch such an attack." Lieutenant Park Soon-ho turned from his station. "Sir, we have nuclear weapons in that yield range, and our ship is small enough and chaotic enough in its energy signature that we might be able to get close before they realize what we're doing." "Suicide run," Commander Lee Dae-ho said bluntly. "Even if we get close enough to launch the weapons, the blast would destroy us too." "Not if we don't stay to watch," Dr. Kang Ji-woo said slowly. "Sir, I've been thinking. Our drive system creates dimensional instabilities as a side effect. That's why it works at all. We're technically cheating physics by sliding in and out of normal space. If I push the drive beyond safety limits, we could jump a short distance. Maybe a few thousand kilometers. Enough to get us clear of the blast?" Minho asked. "Theoretically," Ji-woo admitted. "The drive was never designed for that kind of stress. It might explode. It might tear the ship apart. It might dump us into another dimension entirely, but it might work." Minho looked at each of his senior officers in turn. He saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. They knew what he was about to suggest. None of them looked away. "All hands, this is the captain," Minho broadcast throughout the ship. "We're going to attempt to close the dimensional rift. This will be dangerous. Extremely dangerous. If anyone wants to evacuate to the station, speak now. No judgment, no shame." He waited. 30 seconds passed. Nobody spoke. "All right then," Minho said softly. "Let's go save the galaxy. Ji-woo, plot us a course straight for that rift. Maximum speed, maximum chaos. Make us look like we're running scared." The Taeguk suddenly broke away from the battle, engines flaring erratically as if damaged. To the Chromath and the watching Council forces, it looked like the human ship was retreating. But the trajectory was taking them directly toward the dimensional rift and its guardian bio-titans. Admiral Crix realized what was happening. "Taeguk, what are you doing?" "That's suicide." "Probably," Minho agreed. "All Council ships, I need you to make some noise. Draw as many Chromath as you can away from the rift. Give us a clear run." "You have it," Crix replied immediately. The Vrexian fleet surged forward, weapons blazing, deliberately making themselves obvious targets. The other Council species joined in. Ships from 100 different civilizations, many of whom had been mocking humanity just hours before, now threw themselves into the fight to buy the Taeguk time. The human ship accelerated toward the rift. The bio-titans noticed them now, their massive organic cannons swiveling to track the approaching vessel. Energy began building in their weapons. "Evasive maneuvers," Minho ordered. "Park, start playing them our music collection. All frequencies, maximum volume." "Sir?" Soon-ho asked, confused. "Just do it. Let's confuse them as much as possible." The Chromath bioships, operating on instinct and hive-mind coordination, suddenly found themselves bombarded with sounds they had never encountered. Human music, everything from classical symphonies to heavy metal, flooded the communication channels. The chaotic noise disrupted their coordination just enough to make their aim falter. The Teguk weaved between energy blasts, its ungraceful hull somehow dodging attacks that should have vaporized it. Jiwoo pushed the engines harder, making the ship's energy signature spike and drop randomly, confusing targeting systems. 500 kilometers to optimal launch point, Sunho reported. Bio-Titans are firing everything they have at us. Daeho. You're up, Minho said. Commander Lee Daeho and his Marine team were already in the launch bay, crammed into a small shuttle that looked even more cobbled together than the Teguk. Sir, are you sure about this part of the plan? Not even slightly, Minho admitted. But we need to give the main ship time to escape. Your job is to make sure those warheads detonate exactly where they need to. Understood, Daeho replied. It's been an honor, sir. It's not over yet, Commander. See you on the other side. The shuttle launched from the Teguk's bay, accelerating on a slightly different trajectory than the main ship. The Chromath, confused by multiple targets and the chaotic energy signatures, split their fire. Daeho's shuttle carried 5 nuclear warheads and a dozen Marines who all knew they probably weren't coming back. But they also knew that millions of lives, human and alien, depended on closing that rift. The shuttle approached one of the Bio-Titans, firing thrusters erratically to avoid weapons fire. At the last moment, Daeho executed a maneuver that would have made any sane pilot refuse. He crashed the shuttle directly into the Bio-Titan's armored hull. The organic armor cracked. The Marines, in full combat suits, poured out of the wreckage with cutting torches and explosives. They carved into the Titan's flesh, creating a path toward what their scans suggested was the creature's neural center. This is insane, shouted one of the Marines as organic antibodies, living weapons within the Titan's body, attacked them. We're humans, Daeho replied, shooting an antibody that looked like a flying lamprey. Insane is what we do best. Keep moving. Meanwhile, the Teguk reached the optimal launch point. The dimensional rift was right in front of them, a swirling vortex of broken physics and emerging nightmares. Launching all remaining nuclear ordnance, Sunho reported. Time to detonation, 45 seconds. Jiwoo, charge the drive, Minho ordered. Already doing it, she replied, sweat running down her face as she pushed systems far beyond their design limits. Sir, I have to tell you, the probability of this working is less than 30%. I'll take those odds, Minho said. Hana, send a message to the council. Tell them it's been a pleasure. Hana's hands shook as she typed, but her voice was steady. Message sent, sir. Deep inside the Bio-Titan, Commander Daeho and his team reached their objective. The creature's neural center was a pulsing mass of bioelectric tissue, coordinating the Titan's weapons and defenses. Plant the charges, Daeho ordered. Maximum yield, 0 delay. Sir, we won't have time to get clear, one Marine protested. I know, Daeho said simply. He helped place the nuclear charges, arming each one personally. Tell me, did any of you really think we were getting out of this alive? Nobody answered. They all knew. Then let's make it count, Daeho said. He triggered the detonation sequence. For Earth. For Earth, the Marines echoed. The Bio-Titan exploded from within, its massive bulk disintegrating in nuclear fire. The explosion created a gap in the Chromath defenses just for a moment, just long enough. The Teguk's nuclear warheads reached the rift's focal point and detonated simultaneously. 400 megatons of fury erupted in a space that was already fragile. The dimensional rift buckled, twisted, and began to collapse. Jump drive active, Jiwoo screamed. Engaging now. The universe twisted, reality bent. Every system on the Teguk screamed warnings as the ship tried to do something it was never designed to do. And then they were somewhere else, 3,000 kilometers away. Systems failing, hull breached in a dozen places, but alive. Behind them, the dimensional rift collapsed completely, trapping thousands of Chromath ships on the wrong side of reality. The bioships left in normal space, cut off from reinforcements and their hive mind core, went dormant, floating dead in space. The battle was over. The silence after the chaos was deafening. Report, Minho said weakly. His console showed red warnings across the board. We're alive, Jiwoo replied, sounding amazed. I have no idea how, but we're alive. The Teguk limped back to the Harmony Nexus station like a wounded animal returning to its den. Half of its systems were offline. Its hull looked like someone had used it for target practice, and it was leaking coolant from a dozen different breaches. But it was flying. That was more than many other ships could claim. Captain Han Minho stood on the bridge, watching through the cracked viewport as the station grew closer. Around them, Council warships formed an honor guard. Hundreds of vessels from dozens of species, all maintaining respectful silence as the human ship passed. "They're not laughing anymore," Lieutenant Park Sun-ho observed quietly. "No," Minho agreed. "They're not." The docking process took 3 times, longer than normal because the Teguk systems were barely functional. Dr. Kang, Jiwoo had to manually override half the safety protocols just to get the clamps to engage. When they finally secured, she practically collapsed over her console. "I need 12 hours of sleep and about 40 liters of coffee," she muttered. "Not necessarily in that order." "You'll get both," Minho promised. "Good work, Jiwoo. You kept us flying when by all rights we should have been debris." The airlock cycled open. Beyond it, instead of empty corridor, stood what looked like the entire diplomatic corps of the Galactic Council. High Arbiter Quellon floated at the front, his gaseous form shifting through colors Minho had never seen before. Ambassador Thalis stood beside him, the reptilian diplomat's expression impossible to read. Minho straightened his uniform, which was torn and stained with coolant. His crew formed up behind him. They looked like they had been through hell. Because they had. As Minho stepped through the airlock, something unexpected happened. Every alien present performed their species' version of a salute. Quellon brightened to an almost painful brilliance. Thalis placed his clawed hand over his heart. The insectoid Velktar crossed his upper limbs. Each gesture was different, but the meaning was universal. "Respect, Captain Minho," Quellon said, his voice carrying through translators to every being present. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I must apologize. We underestimated your species. We mocked your ship, your technology, your methods. We were wrong." Thalis stepped forward. "I personally insulted you and your crew. I called your ship a rowboat. I suggested you were not ready for galactic civilization. I was a fool. Without your intervention, the Chromath would have overrun our defenses. Millions would have died. Instead, you and your crew faced impossible odds with courage and creativity that saved us all." Minho felt a lump in his throat. "We lost 12 good people. Commander Lee Daeho and his Marines. They gave their lives to close that rift. They will be remembered," Quellon said solemnly. "We are already preparing a memorial. Their names will be inscribed alongside the greatest heroes in galactic history. This I swear." Admiral Crix appeared through the crowd, his Rexian armor scarred from battle. He stopped in front of Minho and did something that made several aliens gasp. He knelt. "Captain Minho, I have commanded fleets for 40 years. I have fought in 16 major conflicts. I thought I understood war. But today you and your crew taught me something I had forgotten. That victory does not always go to the most advanced technology or the most elegant tactics. Sometimes victory goes to those who refuse to quit, who adapt faster than the enemy, and who are willing to take risks that others consider insane." Crix stood, and Minho saw genuine respect in the Admiral's eyes. "I request permission to study your combat methods. I wish to train my officers in human tactical thinking. The galaxy needs warriors who can think like you." "Granted," Minho said. "Though I warn you, our methods are messy." "Messy," Crix repeated, and something that might have been a smile crossed his reptilian features. "Yes, messy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. Exactly what the galaxy needs." Over the following hours, as medical teams treated the wounded and engineers assessed the damage to the Teguk, the truth of what humanity had accomplished began to spread. The battle recordings were analyzed by every military academy in the Council. Scientists studied the human approach to redundant systems. Diplomats discussed the psychological tactics Yun Hana had employed. Velktar, the insectoid engineer, requested permission to write a paper about human engineering philosophy. "I'm calling it functional chaos, why human systems work when they shouldn't," he told Dr. Jiwoo. "You've revolutionized my understanding of engineering." Jiwoo, running on coffee and stubbornness, managed a tired smile. "Just remember to mention that my professor gave me an F on the original paper. I want that in the official record." 3 days after the battle, the full council convened to vote on humanity's status. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member species present. Captain Minho stood at the center, flanked by his remaining crew. High Arbiter Quellon addressed the assembly. The question before us is simple. Do we grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities that entails? Ambassador Thalas was the first to speak. I vote yes. Without question, without hesitation, the humans have proven themselves not just worthy of membership, but essential to our survival. Admiral Crick stood. The Vrexian Empire votes yes. Furthermore, we propose that humanity be granted protection of Sector 17, a position of significant trust. Their unique approach to defense would serve the Council well. One by one, every species voted. The final tally was unanimous. For the first time in Council history, a species achieved full membership after a single first contact. But when Quellon offered humanity immediate resources to build a fleet, shipyards, materials, advanced technology, Minho surprised everyone by declining most of it. We appreciate the offer, he said carefully. But we'll build our fleet our own way at our own pace. We're willing to trade for raw materials and share knowledge, but the designs, the engineering, the philosophy, that needs to stay human. If you give us your technology, we'll become dependent on it. We'll lose what makes us useful to you. Quellon's colors shifted to something that might have been approval. Wise, very wise. You understand something that took my species centuries to learn. That accepting help is not the same as accepting dependence. Very well. We will provide materials and knowledge, but the ships will be yours, built by humans for humans. The meeting concluded with ceremonies and speeches, but Minho's mind was already elsewhere. When he finally returned to the Teguk, he found Yoon Han on the observation deck staring at the stars. Can't sleep? He asked. Thinking about Daeho, she replied. About all of them. They died so we could live, so millions could live. They were heroes, Minho said simply, and we'll make sure everyone remembers that. Hana turned to face him. Sir, what happens now? We came here with one ship. Now we're full council members, responsible for defending an entire sector. How do we even begin? Minho smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. The same way we've done everything else. We improvise, we adapt. We build something that shouldn't work, but does anyway. That's what humans do. 6 months passed. The Teguk returned to Earth orbit for decommissioning and to become a museum. The crew gathered on the observation deck one last time, watching their home planet rotate below them. But they weren't the only ones watching Earth. Spread across the orbit were 15 new ships in various stages of construction. Each one bore the hallmarks of human engineering: redundant systems, ungraceful but functional designs, weapons that the galaxy considered obsolete, but which humans knew worked perfectly well. The new flagship was nearly complete. Lieutenant Park Sun-ho, now a captain himself, would command it. Dr. Kang Jiwoo had already designed its engine system, even more chaotic than the Teguk's original drive, and somehow more efficient. Commander Lee Daeho's name was engraved on its hull. The ship was called the Daeho, honoring the Marine who had given his life for the galaxy. They're beautiful, Hana said, looking at the new vessels. She wore an ambassador's uniform now, her role in the council official and permanent. They're ugly as hell, Jiwoo corrected, but she was smiling. And I wouldn't have them any other way. A message came through from High Arbiter Quellon. Minho, now promoted to Admiral and Commander of Earth's Defense Fleet, accepted the transmission. Admiral Minho, the Council has completed its evaluation of Earth's fleet readiness. We assign you responsibility for Sector 17's defense. Your fleet status is rated as adequate. Sun-ho laughed out loud. Adequate? After everything we did, they rate us as adequate. It's perfect, Minho said, grinning. Let them think we're just adequate. Let them underestimate us. We work better that way. Quellon's image seemed to shift colors in what might have been amusement. I suspect that was precisely your plan, Admiral. Very well. The galaxy thanks you for your service. And, Admiral, we are watching humanity's progress with great interest. I believe you will surprise us many more times before you're done. The transmission ended. Minho looked at his crew, his friends, the people who had survived the impossible with him. To the ship they laughed at, he said, raising an imaginary glass. Until it arrived, they responded in unison. Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation. Above them, the stars waited. And between them, humanity's new fleet took shape. Messy, chaotic, redundant, and absolutely unstoppable. The dimensional rift opened like a wound in space. One moment there was nothing. The next moment, reality itself was tearing apart. Through the gap poured ships, thousands of them organic and writhing, like diseased tissue given form and purpose. Captain Minho reached the Taeguk's bridge at a dead run, his crew already at their stations. The main screen showed the growing swarm of alien vessels, each one a nightmare of bioengineered flesh and bone. Status, Minho barked. Lieutenant Park Sun-ho's hands flew across his console. Hostile contacts, at least 4,000 and still coming through. They're moving fast, sir. The Council is broadcasting warnings but getting no response. Ships match the description of the Chromath swarm. I thought the Chromath were just stories, said Yoon Hana, her voice tight. Apparently not, Dr. Kang Jiwoo replied from engineering. These readings are insane. Those ships are alive, Captain. Actually alive. Organic drives, biological weapons, the whole package. Minho pulled up what little data Earth had managed to intercept about the Chromath, a hive mind species hostile to all other life, considered extinct for centuries. Clearly someone had been wrong about that. Outside, the Council's defense fleet was scrambling. Hundreds of warships were moving into formation, their sleek hulls glowing with activated weapons. The Vrexian Empire's forces took point, their massive dreadnoughts positioning themselves between the station and the approaching swarm. Admiral Crix's face appeared on every screen, his scaled features set in grim determination. All civilian vessels are to retreat behind the defense line. Military vessels form up on my position. We will not allow these creatures to reach the station. The Chromath bioships did not slow down. They did not respond to hails or warnings. They simply came forward in a tide of organic horror, their weapons already charging with sickly green light. The first shots were fired by the Vrexians. Brilliant lances of energy stabbed across the darkness, striking the lead Chromath vessels. Several exploded in bursts of gore and fluid, but for every one destroyed, 10 more surged forward. They're using swarm tactics, Park Sun-ho observed, his tactical display showing the enemy movements. Classic saturation attack. Overwhelm the defenses with numbers. Minho leaned forward, studying the patterns. Something about the way the Chromath moved tickled at his memory. He had seen this before. Where? Sir, Admiral Crix is ordering all non-military vessels to retreat to minimum safe distance, Hana reported. Acknowledge the order but hold position, Minho said. His crew looked at him but didn't question. They trusted him. The Council fleet engaged fully. Energy weapons lit up space like a light show. Missiles streaked out in elegant spirals. Advanced targeting systems picked off Chromath vessels with impressive precision. For a few minutes it looked like the defense would hold. Then the Chromath adapted. The bioships began moving erratically, twitching and spasming in ways that confused the targeting computers. They split into smaller groups, attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. The elegant formations of the Council fleet began to break apart under the pressure. They're learning, Jiwoo said quietly. They're watching how the Council ships fight and adjusting in real time. Minho suddenly remembered where he had seen these patterns before. Locusts, he said. They move like locusts. I saw a swarm once in Australia before I left Earth. Billions of insects moving together but without real coordination, each one reacting to its neighbors, creating emergent behavior. Park Sun-ho looked up sharply. Sir, if you're right, then the Council's approach is all wrong. They're trying to outthink the swarm, but there's nothing to outthink. It's all instinct and reaction. Exactly, Minho agreed. He hit the communication button. Taeguk to Admiral Crix. The Vrexian commander's image appeared, showing clear signs of stress. Human vessel, I ordered you to retreat. I have no time for... Admiral, your tactics aren't working. The Chromath aren't thinking. They're reacting. You need to stop trying to predict them and start disrupting them. Crix's eyes narrowed. And I suppose you have a suggestion? Your one little ship? As a matter of fact, yes, Minho replied. Give me 30 seconds on an open channel to all your ships. This is madness, Crix began, but another wave of Chromath was breaking through his lines. Ships were dying. He made a split-second decision. You have 20 seconds. Minho's face appeared on every Council military vessel's screen. He spoke quickly and clearly. All ships, this is Captain Han Minho of the Taeguk. Stop using predictive algorithms. The Chromath are using swarm behavior. They react to your actions. If you're predictable, they'll overwhelm you. Start using random attack patterns. Change your formations constantly. Use chaff, debris, anything to disrupt their sensors. Don't try to be elegant. Try to be chaotic. Several council commanders protested immediately, but Admiral Crix cut them off. Do it, we're losing ships. Try the humans' way, the battle changed. Council vessels began firing at seemingly random intervals. They broke formation and scattered, then reformed in unexpected configurations. They launched clouds of metallic chaff that confused the Chromath's organic sensors. The swarm's advance slowed. Without predictable patterns to react to, the bioships began colliding with each other, their instinct-driven movements creating chaos within their own ranks. It's working, Hana said. Amazement in her voice. For now, Minho replied. But there's still too many of them. Jiwoo, how fast can you modify our engine emissions? The engineer looked up from her console, grinning despite the situation. To do what? To cause interference. Make noise. Confuse their sensors even more. Give me 5 minutes, Jiwoo said, already working. I can make us the loudest thing in this sector. Commander Lee Daeho appeared on the bridge, his Marines suited up and armed. Sir, if you're planning what I think you're planning, we're ready. Minho nodded. Good. Because we're about to do something very stupid. Lieutenant Park Sun-ho pulled up a tactical overlay. Sir, I'm seeing a pattern. The Chromath are strongest in the center of their formation, but their flanks are weaker. If we could hit them from the side with something they're not expecting. Nuclear weapons, Minho said. They won't be expecting nuclear weapons. Jiwoo's modifications were complete faster than promised. The Taeguk's engines began emitting a wildly fluctuating energy signature that made every sensor in the area go haywire. The bioships nearest to them twitched and spasmed, their organic systems confused by the chaotic readings. Taeguk to Admiral Crix, Minho broadcast. We're making a run at their flank. We're going to use kinetic weapons and nuclear ordnance. I suggest your ships clear the area. You're insane, Crix replied. But Minho could see respect in the Admiral's eyes. Clear the area around the human ship. Let them through. The Taeguk accelerated. It didn't move with the elegant grace of the council ships. It moved like a brawler entering a fight. Direct, aggressive, and completely unpredictable. Chromath bioships turned to intercept, but Jiwoo's modifications had them confused. They couldn't get a proper lock. Their organic weapons fired wildly, missing the human ship by meters. Weapons range in 10 seconds, Park Sun-ho announced. Nuclear ordnance armed and ready. Fire at will, Minho ordered. The Taeguk unleashed hell. Nuclear weapons considered primitive and abandoned by the galaxy proved devastatingly effective against organic ships. The biovessels had no shields designed to stop such crude weapons. They exploded in expanding spheres of superheated plasma, taking dozens of their neighbors with them. Kinetic harpoons, simple metal spears fired at high velocity, punched through organic hulls like paper. Electromagnetic pulse weapons fried the bioships' nervous systems, leaving them floating dead in space. The Taeguk carved a path through the Chromath flank, leaving destruction in its wake. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't sophisticated, but it worked. Sir, the main swarm is shifting, Hana reported. They're focusing on us now. Good, Minho said. That means they're not focusing on the station. Keep us moving. Don't give them a chance to adapt to our position. Medical Officer Choi Mirai's voice came through from the medical bay. Captain, I've been studying the debris from destroyed Chromath vessels. Their biology is sensitive to rapid temperature changes. If we could expose them to extreme cold followed by extreme heat. Our cooling systems, Jiwoo interrupted. We vent coolant as part of our heat management. It's supercooled. If we vented it near Chromath vessels and then hit them with nuclear fire, the temperature shock would tear them apart, Mirai confirmed. Minho smiled. It was not a nice smile. Let's test that theory. Jiwoo, prepare for rapid coolant venting. Sunho, target clusters of enemy ships. Daeho, prepare boarding teams. I have a feeling this fight is about to get even crazier. Outside, the council fleet was rallying. Inspired by the human ship's reckless aggression, they pushed forward with renewed determination. The tide of battle was shifting, but the Chromath still outnumbered them 5-1. And through the dimensional rift, even more bioships continued to pour into normal space. The fight was far from over. Dr. Kang Jiwoo walked through the corridors of the Taeguk, with 5 alien engineers following behind her. Their expressions ranged from confusion to outright disbelief. She had been explaining the ship's systems for nearly an hour, and nothing she said seemed to make sense to them. This is impossible. declared a floating crystalline being named Rixtel. Your primary drive has 17 separate power sources. 17. Any proper vessel needs only one reliable source. This is chaos. Jiwoo smiled and patted a bulky piece of machinery that hummed with barely contained energy. You're right. It is chaos. But that's the point. If one system fails, 16 others keep working. We don't trust perfection. We trust backups. Velktar, the insectoid engineer, ran his scanning equipment over the drive core. His compound eyes reflected the dancing lights of the instruments. But how do you synchronize them? The mathematical complexity alone should make this design impossible to control. We don't synchronize them, Jiwoo explained. We let them fight each other. The interference patterns actually create a more stable field than any single clean source could produce. My old professor said it would never work. He gave me an F on the paper. But here we are, light years from Earth. The alien engineers exchanged glances that Jiwoo was learning to read. They thought humans were either brilliant or insane, maybe both. Meanwhile, in the Council's main observation hall, Captain Minho sat across from High Arbiter Quellen and several other senior delegates. The gaseous being floated in a containment field, its colors shifting as it spoke. Tell us, Captain, why does humanity send only one ship? Surely you understand this makes you appear weak. Minho took a sip of water from a container he'd brought from the Teguk. The station's water tasted wrong to human tongues. We sent one ship because we only finished building one ship. We're new to this. We thought it was better to come with what we had rather than wait another 20 years to build a fleet. Ambassador Thalis leaned forward. And what does Earth expect to gain from this contact? Knowledge, Minho replied simply. We want to learn. We want to trade. We want to avoid any misunderstandings that might lead to conflict. Simple goals. How refreshingly honest, Quellon said, though his tone suggested he didn't quite believe it. And if we were to reject your application for council membership? Then we'd go home and keep working on our own, Minho said with a shrug. The galaxy is big enough for everyone. This response seemed to surprise several delegates. They had expected begging or threats, not indifference. Down in the ship's marine quarters, Commander Lee Daeho was giving a demonstration of human combat training to a group of military observers from various species. The observation room had been designed for elegant displays of advanced weaponry and tactical simulations. What they got instead was something that made several aliens visibly uncomfortable. Daeho stood in the center of the room with two of his Marines. Most species develop energy weapons and long-range combat systems. That makes sense. But humans learned to fight up close first, and we never forgot those skills. He gestured, and his Marines began a hand-to-hand combat drill. The movements were fast and brutal, strikes designed to disable or kill with bare hands. No weapons, no technology, just trained bodies moving with lethal efficiency. A Vrexian officer, his scales rippling with unease, spoke up. This is barbaric. Why would you maintain such primitive combat techniques when energy weapons are far more effective? Daeho smiled coldly. Because energy weapons can fail. They can be jammed, disrupted, or run out of power. But these, he held up his hands, these always work. And if an enemy gets past your shields and onto your ship, you need to know how to fight them face to face. He demonstrated a joint lock on one of his Marines, showing how a human could disable an opponent twice their size with leverage and technique. We also train with knives, clubs, and improvised weapons, because you can't always count on your equipment working perfectly. The alien observers watched in silence. Several of them were clearly disturbed by the casual violence of it all. Others looked thoughtful. Back in the engineering section, Jiwoo had reached the weapons storage. She entered her security code and the doors slid open. The alien engineers went very still. Are those nuclear weapons? Brixtel asked, his crystalline body actually vibrating with shock. Yes, Jiwoo confirmed. We have 43 nuclear warheads on board, various yields and delivery systems. Velktar's translator unit struggled to process his response. But nuclear technology is thousands of years old. The galaxy abandoned such crude weapons millennia ago. Jiwoo picked up one of the smaller warheads, handling it with casual familiarity. Just because something is old doesn't mean it doesn't work. These are reliable, powerful, and very hard to defend against if you're not expecting them. Plus, they don't require exotic materials or complex maintenance. We can build these anywhere. This is madness, one of the other engineers whispered. Your entire species is insane. Maybe, Jiwoo agreed cheerfully. But we're here, aren't we? Our crazy ship made it across the stars. That has to count for something. In the diplomatic quarters, Yoon Hana was having tea with several junior ambassadors from different species. She had quickly learned that the real information in any organization came from the lower ranks, not the leadership. "Tell me," she said to a small, furry alien named Pix. "What do you really think about our arrival?" Pix glanced around nervously. "Honestly, most of us don't understand why the Council is even bothering with you. No offense, but you have one ship." "One. The Vrexian Empire has millions. The Council represents nearly 1,000 species. What can humanity possibly offer?" Hana smiled and added sweetener to her tea. "What if I told you that we're very good at solving problems that seem impossible?" "I would ask for proof," Pix replied. "Fair enough," Hana said. She pulled out a small data pad. "Before we left Earth, we spent 3 months studying everything we could intercept about galactic civilization. We noticed something interesting. The Council has been trying to establish a trade route through the Demon's Eye Nebula for 40 years. Every attempt has failed because the radiation plays havoc with guidance systems." "Right?" Pix nodded slowly. "That's correct. The potential savings would be enormous, but no one has found a solution." "We think we have," Hana said. "Our navigation systems are intentionally redundant and shielded. They're designed to work in high radiation environments because Earth's early space program had to deal with solar flares and asteroid belt radiation. We could probably fly through the Demon's Eye without much trouble." Several other junior diplomats had stopped their conversations to listen. Hana had their attention now. Back in the observation hall, Kellen was reviewing the reports from the ship inspection. His colors were shifting rapidly, a sign of agitation among his species. "This is most unusual," he said to Tholis. "The humans appear to have no understanding of efficient engineering. Their ship is a nightmare of redundant systems and obsolete technology. And yet it works," Tholis finished. "I know, Velktar sent me his analysis. He's fascinated. He says their approach to problem solving is unlike anything he's encountered." "They brought nuclear weapons," Quellen added. "Nuclear weapons? Like savages from the Dark Ages." "Effective savages," Tholis corrected. "The weapons are crude but functional, and their military commander demonstrated combat techniques that would be devastating in close quarters. Tell me, Arbiter, when was the last time any of our security forces trained for hand-to-hand combat?" Quellon's colors dimmed. "Not in my lifetime. There's no need. Modern warfare is conducted at range with energy weapons and smart systems." "Exactly," Tholis said. "But what if those systems fail? What if an enemy boards our ships? The humans would know what to do." "Would we?" The two diplomats sat in silence for a moment, considering. Finally, Quellen spoke again. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that perhaps we have underestimated these humans. They are crude, yes, primitive in many ways, but they survived and thrived on a harsh world with limited resources. They learned to make do with less, to improvise, to never rely on any single system. These are not weaknesses, Arbiter. In the right circumstances, these could be tremendous strengths." As if to punctuate his point, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights began flashing. Both diplomats rose immediately, their previous discussion forgotten. A holographic display appeared, showing a section of space beyond the neutral zone. Something was emerging there, something that made every sensor scream warnings. Commander Lee Daeho's communicator buzzed. It was Captain Minho's voice, calm despite the chaos around them. "All crew return to the Taeguk immediately. We have a situation." The time for demonstrations and inspections was over. Something was coming through the darkness of space, and every instinct Minho had learned in 15 years of surviving the dangers of the asteroid belt told him that humanity's real test was about to begin. The galaxy had laughed at their single ship. Now it was time to see if that laughter would continue. The observation deck of the Galactic Council station buzzed with activity, as hundreds of alien delegates gathered to witness what many were calling the joke of the century. On every screen, the same image appeared, a ship that looked like someone had welded together pieces of trash and called it a vessel. The humans had arrived. Captain Han Minho stood on the bridge of the Taeguk, watching the massive station grow larger in the viewport. His weathered face showed no emotion as his crew worked around him. He had spent 15 years mining asteroids in the belt beyond Mars, and he knew what real danger looked like. This circus of alien politicians did not scare him. "They're laughing at us, sir," said Lieutenant Park Sun-ho from the tactical station. The young officer's jaw was tight as he monitored the communications channels. Every single channel is making jokes about our ship. Let them laugh, Minho replied calmly. We came here to talk, not to impress anyone. Dr. Kangjiwoo looked up from her engineering console, her dark eyes flashing with irritation. They're calling my drive system primitive. Primitive? Do they have any idea how many laws of physics I had to bend to make this thing work? Yoon Hana, seated at the communications station, adjusted her headset and smiled. Ambassador Tholis just called us the species that brought a rowboat to an ocean. Very poetic for a giant lizard. Minho allowed himself a small smile. Respond to their hail. Tell them we request permission to dock. The main screen flickered and an image appeared. Ambassador Tholis was indeed reptilian, with green scales that shimmered under the station's lights. His eyes were cold and his mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. Behind him, dozens of other aliens watched with various expressions of amusement. Humans, Tholis said, his voice dripping with condescension. We have received your request for peaceful contact. The Council has debated whether to even acknowledge your presence. You approach us with one ship, one single vessel that looks like it might fall apart at any moment. Tell me, do you truly believe you are ready to join galactic civilization? Minho stepped forward, his posture relaxed. We're ready to talk. That's all we came to do. A wave of laughter rippled through the alien assembly. A floating gaseous being that Minho recognized as High Arbiter Krellin spoke next. You have courage, at least. Very well. We grant you observer status. You may dock at Bay 47. Do not expect much from this visit, humans. The galaxy has little patience for species who overestimate their importance. The transmission ended. Park Sun-ho turned to his captain. Sir, I'm detecting 36 warships moving into formation around us. Phyrexian Empire vessels. A welcoming party, Minho said dryly. How thoughtful. The Phyrexian ships were beautiful in their own way. Sleek predators of dark metal and glowing energy cores. Each one was 10 times the size of the Teguk. They moved with perfect precision, creating a formation that was clearly meant to intimidate. Jiwoo studied her sensors. Their weapons are active. Not locked on us, but definitely ready. Standard posturing, Minho said. Hana, send them a friendly greeting. Something polite. Hana's fingers danced across her console. Sending now. Greetings from Earth, we come in peace and look forward to friendship. Basic and boring. Perfect, Minho replied. The Teguk moved forward slowly. Up close, the ship really did look rough. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals, salvaged from asteroids and old stations. Nuclear reactors that any advanced species would consider ancient provided power. The engines left a trail of exotic particles that made alien sensors go haywire. Nothing about the ship made sense by galactic standards, but it flew. And it had crossed light years to get here. As they approached the docking bay, Minho studied his crew. Park Sun-ho had been a tactical genius in Earth's defense forces before joining the mission. Kangjiwoo had 7 advanced degrees and had been rejected by every major space agency for being too unconventional. Yoon Hana spoke 12 languages and had a gift for reading people that bordered on supernatural. Commander Lee Daeho stood near the rear of the bridge, his marine unit ready for anything. Docking sequence initiated. Jiwoo announced. Their clamps are trying to interface with our hull. It's not going well. Our ship doesn't match any of their standard configurations. Can you make it work? Minho asked. Can I make it work? Jiwoo laughed. Captain, I made a faster-than-light drive out of spare parts in theory that my professor said was impossible. I can make anything work. Several minutes and much creative engineering later, the Teguk was secured to the station. Minho gathered his senior officers near the airlock. Through the small window, they could see aliens gathering on the other side. Dozens of species, all watching with barely concealed amusement. Remember, Minho said quietly, we're not here to prove anything. We're here to learn, to establish contact, and to represent Earth. If they want to laugh, let them laugh. We know what we accomplished to get here. Commander Lee Daeho checked his sidearm. And if they try something more than laughing, then we show them that humans are very hard to kill, Minho replied. But it won't come to that, probably. The airlock cycled open. The air that rushed in smelled strange, too clean, too processed. Minho led his team into the station and found themselves surrounded by aliens of every description. Some had scales, some had fur, some were just clouds of glowing gas. All of them were staring. Ambassador Tholas stepped forward, his height forcing Minho to look up. "Welcome to Harmony Nexus, humans. I trust your journey was not too difficult for your primitive vessel." "The journey was fine," Minho said evenly. "Thank you for allowing us to dock." "The Council wishes to inspect your ship," Tholas continued. "Standard procedure for all new species. I'm sure you understand. We must ensure you are not carrying anything dangerous." "Of course," Minho agreed. "Dr. Kang will give your engineers a tour." Jiwoo stepped forward, her expression pleasant but her eyes sharp. "I'd be delighted to show them around, though I should warn you, our technology might not make much sense to you." A tall insectoid alien approached, his compound eyes gleaming with curiosity. "I am Velktar, Chief Engineer of the Council's Scientific Division. I very much look forward to seeing how your species travels between stars." As the groups began to separate, Minho caught Jiwoo's eye and gave her a small nod. She understood. "Show them everything, but don't explain too much. Let them underestimate us." Yoon-hana stayed close to the captain as they were led deeper into the station. She whispered, "Sir, I'm picking up a lot of interesting signals. Private communications between the delegates. Most of them are betting on how long before we give up and go home." "How long are they giving us?" Minho asked. 3 days, Hana replied. "The over-under is 3 days," Minho smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Then we should probably stay for 4. Behind them, through the docking port, the Taeguk sat like an ugly duckling among swans. Its hull was scarred. Its design was chaotic, and every advanced civilization represented on the station thought it was a miracle the thing could even fly. They had no idea what was coming.